So my name is Marcia Brissett-Bailey, and I am part of Pioneering Speak, which is a privilege to be part of. And I've been in education working, I guess, over 30 years now. I've been working in education in various settings, from higher education to post 16 and even in primary schools. And I was a youth worker, so education's my thing. But in that process of being an educator and empowering others, one of the things I've got to take you back to is that when I was at primary school, I was told that I'm not going to academically achieve. Didn't quite know or understand what that meant, but what I did know, I didn't feel included in school. I felt that I wasn't part of the classroom in terms of the way I was thinking, the way I saw the world. It was only later on, through, I guess, inner strength, having a grandmother that I grew up with who told me I had to work twice as hard. So resilience was my thing, right? I had to build myself, and always, if I fell, pick myself up. There was a lot of tough love in my environment, in my upbringing. So that's what I did. It was only when I went to college was I told that I was dyslexic. All this time of feeling alone, feeling misunderstood, feeling that I wanted to write. I loved school, but school didn't love me. It all came apparent to what was actually happening. And basically the system failed me. The system's not in a diverse setup. It's almost like a conveyor belt. And that individual child and that unique child, they don't necessarily, it's all about standardized testing. And why I'm telling you that is because I believed in myself, and all those times I had to disconnect from the classroom and have imagination. I dreamed of writing. I loved words. I loved reading. I loved poetry. And so what I'm saying and what I'm sharing is about this journey of becoming an author. It was so surreal that it happened, but it has happened because I never gave up. I never gave up on me. And I'm coming from a place of trauma and scars, and that's through an education system making me feel about focusing on what I can't do instead of what I can do. So being dyslexic for me has been a superpower, but it also has its struggles and challenges because of the society that we're built in. It's not a kind of social in terms of the way we learn. So books have been second nature, but it's been a struggle because I had to learn to read by myself. And my parents were amazing with love, but that reading and the education side was really tricky. Now, so just to give you a bit of background of who I am and where I've come from. So I'm a champion of dyslexia and neurodiversity. I want to change the narrative in terms of the representation, break stigma and the silence. And I'm just so grateful that Winsome brought me along in her journey, and said, Marcia, you can do this. As much as I feel I'm confident in lots of areas, still sometimes that's self-sabotage and that self-doubt does come back to haunt me, from take me back all the way from when I was at school. So I am part of the Pioneering Speak, and my chapter really talks about creativity and how creativity, you can create so many things. And we it's like I say, sometimes adults forget how to play. And it's going back to that. We all come from a place of creativity and nurturing, and we sometimes forget that. So I talk about that in that first part of my chapter within the book. Then I move on to entrepreneuring. Some of you may or may not know, about 50% of entrepreneurs are neurodiverse or dyslexic like me. So neurodiverse can be people with ASD, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia. We don't fit into sometimes the norm. So we find a way and think outside the box and create our own kind of creativity and our own kind of businesses. So that's what I mean by when I'm talking about neurodiverse. So that's kind of what I talk about. And I talk about my children, how I help them to think a bit different and not necessarily always go with the mainstream, think about being creative. The last part of my chapter is about goal setting. So one of the things I didn't say to you, in my 30 years experience in working with people, I'm a qualified careers advisor, and I do a lot of work around personal development and goal setting. So looking at short, medium and long-term goals. So those aspects of me are part of my neurodiversity, and why my chapter is called Embracing Neurodiversity in Business, because we've all got something to offer. We've all got something to achieve. If I continued listening to my teacher, which I was broken lots of times within education, I wouldn't have 3 degrees. And recently doing my MA in special education, if I believe that, and there's so many of our children who are in that system and are not feeling that they belong, for various reasons, but one of mine was about my dyslexia. And I'm just so grateful for this journey. Being part of an anthology is something that I would say to consider or look at, working with other women. I've just learned so much. We have definitely transformed, and I'm really looking forward to being part of this journey as an author. I do have another book coming out next year, with a publisher. So while I was in lockdown and while I was writing this chapter, I also got a publishing deal, and I'll be writing now about dyslexia and representation of Black people in dyslexia, because I think it's really important for me, and that's part of what I want to share and leave, is about breaking taboos. And thank you.